Our HOA president thought she was unstoppable until she messed with the wrong family. Skull when she fined for parking in our own driveway. She had no idea my dad was a banker reviewing her $1 million loan. But when we uncovered shocking financial fraud, things got dangerous. Threats, break-ins, and a midnight showdown caught on camera. Camera would flash what happened next. Let's just say she never saw it coming. Stay till the end, because this revenge, it's legendary. The night before the nightmare started, our home was filled with warmth and laughter. My sister, Jenny, had just graduated, and our family threw a small celebration. Relatives flew in, old friends stopped by, and our house felt alive in a way it hadn't in years. As the evening wore on, some guests who had traveled long distances decided to stay the night. Their cars filled our driveway and the curbside, but we didn't think much of it. It was our driveway, our home, our property. What could possibly be wrong with that? The next morning, I walked outside, still groggy from the late-night festivities. The moment I saw the bright pink slip tucked under my windshield wiper, my stomach dropped. $150 fine driveway violation. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I reread the paper. My pulse quickened. The fine stated that we had too many vehicles parked in our driveway, violating Section 7.3 of the Pinecrest Gardens HOA rules. I scanned the street. No other cars had violation slips. Just ours. My blood boiled as I stormed back inside. Dad, you need to see this. I yelled, waving the paper. My father, Thomas Reynolds, looked up from his coffee, his sharp, calculating eyes narrowing as he took the paper from me. As a senior loan officer at First National Bank, he dealt with numbers and rules every day. But even he looked baffled as he read the fine. "This makes no sense," he muttered, flipping to the fine print. "It says we violated Section 7.3 by having more than 2 vehicles in our driveway. Since when is that a rule?" My mother, still in her robe, walked over, peering at the paper. "That's ridiculous. This is our private property." Dad grabbed his phone. "I'm calling the HOA office right now." We huddled around as he dialed, putting the call on speaker. "Pinecrest Gardens HOA. This is Karen Matthews speaking." A clipped, smug voice answered. The name sent a chill through me. I'd never spoken to her, but I'd seen her, a woman in her late 40s, blonde hair always perfectly styled, wearing expensive workout clothes even though I never saw her at the gym. She'd only moved in 6 months ago and was elected HOA president last month. And now, she was changing the rules to suit herself. Dad spoke calmly. "This is Thomas Reynolds from 428 Maple Drive. We received a violation notice for parking in our own driveway. There must be a mistake." Karen's laugh sent ice through my veins. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't apologetic. It was cold, amused. "No mistake, Mr. Reynolds. Section 7.3 clearly states that residents may have no more than 2 vehicles parked in their driveway at any time. You had 5. That's a $150 fine." Dad kept his voice steady, but I saw his knuckles whiten around the phone. "Karen, these were overnight guests for my daughter's graduation. Surely there's an exception for special events." Karen's voice hardened. "Rules are rules, Mr. Reynolds. If we allowed exceptions, our neighborhood would look like a used car lot. The fine is due within 10 days. Otherwise, it doubles." The line went dead. I turned to Dad, fuming. She did that on purpose. Dad exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. Some people like power a little too much. Something told me this was just the beginning. I glanced out the window and froze. Karen was standing in her driveway across the street, staring directly at our house. She had her phone in one hand, and a smug smile stretched across her face. Her expensive designer leggings and zip-up jacket made her look like a suburban warlord rather than an HOA president. She knew we were watching, and she liked it. That afternoon, I helped Dad dig through our HOA documents, the ones we barely glanced at when we moved in 3 years ago. Sure enough, the driveway parking rule existed, but it was buried on page 37 of a 50-page document, a document Karen was suddenly weaponizing against us. "This is crazy," I muttered. Why would anyone care how many cars we have in our driveway for one night? Dad leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Some people like having power over others. We paid the fine, but something told me this wasn't over. I was right. The next morning, I opened our mailbox and felt my stomach clench. Another pink slip, another fine. This time, improper lawn maintenance. Grass exceeds 3.5 inches in height. Fine, $75. I ran inside, shoving the paper at Dad. She's targeting us. Dad scanned it, but he didn't look surprised. I figured she might. I cut the grass 4 days ago. Mom threw up her hands. This is harassment. Should we call a lawyer? Dad's lips pressed into a thin line. Not yet. His eyes darkened. I want to learn more about these rules first. That evening, our neighbor, Mr. Jackson, knocked on our door. He held a citation slip identical to ours. She's just getting started, he warned. He told us how Karen had ordered his son's basketball hoop removed after it had been up for 5 years. The Garcia family got fined for planting the wrong color flowers. Mrs. Wilson, an elderly woman, was warned about her bird feeder being unsightly. Karen was drunk on power, and she wasn't going to stop. That night, Dad sat at his laptop, scrolling through property records and HOA financial documents. His face was unreadable. What are you looking at? I asked. He didn't look up. Patterns. The next day, another fine appeared on our mailbox. This time, wind chimes exceeding HOA-approved noise levels. Fine, $50. Then another, mailbox color slightly too dark. Fine, $100. The violations kept stacking up until Dad made a game-changing discovery. Dad placed his coffee cup down with an unusual gleam in his eyes. The HOA is applying for a $1.2 million loan, he said slowly, for a community center renovation. I frowned. So, he smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Guess which bank they applied to? My heart stopped. No way. Dad nodded. First National. His bank. And guess who was assigned to review their application? My father. My pulse raced. Karen had no idea she was messing with the wrong family. For the next few days, Dad was laser-focused. His laptop became a battleground, financial statements as weapons, and his quiet determination to calm before a storm. I'd never seen him like this before. What exactly are you looking for? I asked as he pored over the documents. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned his screen toward me. Look at this. I leaned in. 2 columns of numbers glowed on the screen. One was labeled HOA collected fines. The other, HOA reported fines. One figure stood out immediately. Whoa, $122,000 in fines. In just 2 months. Dad nodded grimly. Last year, before Karen took over, the total annual fines collected were only around $5,000. The math didn't lie. Karen wasn't just power hungry. She was profiting from it. Where's all that money going? I asked, a sinking feeling in my gut. Dad's fingers tapped his desk. That's the real question, isn't it? HOA rules stated that all fines must be used for community improvements, landscaping, new streetlights, security patrols. But when Dad cross-checked public HOA financial reports, something was missing. None of the newly collected fine money was accounted for. Dad let out a low whistle. If these numbers don't match up, that's fraud. A heavy silence filled the room. Then, like clockwork, another HOA violation notice arrived. Unauthorized decorative items violation, garden gnome. Fine, $50. I barely glanced at it. Karen thought she was untouchable. She was about to find out she wasn't. The next morning, I walked outside to check the mailbox, but something felt off. Then I saw it. Our garden had been destroyed. Plants were uprooted, mulch scattered across the yard, and flower pots smashed like someone had gone on a rampage. And sitting right in the center of the chaos, taped to our front door, another pink slip, landscaping debris violation, $200. I didn't even feel the rage at first. It was more like shock. Karen did this. I turned back toward the house, gripping the paper so tightly my knuckles turned white. Dad. He was already at the door, and he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the security camera above our garage. We pulled up the footage inside. The screen flickered, and then there she was, Karen Matthews, at 2 a.m, dressed in all black, digging up our plants like a madwoman. We had her. Dad stared at the screen, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. Then, without a word, he picked up his phone and dialed. Yes, I'd like to report an act of vandalism. By the time Officer Martinez arrived, half the neighborhood had already gathered outside. The moment Karen stepped outside, the murmur of whispers turned into a hush. She didn't know yet. Dad wasted no time. He turned the laptop screen toward Officer Martinez. We have footage of Karen vandalizing our property. Karen's smug expression faltered. Officer Martinez watched the footage, then turned to Karen. Is this you? Karen folded her arms. That video doesn't prove anything. Officer Martinez raised an eyebrow. It proves trespassing, criminal mischief, and possibly harassment. A murmur ran through the crowd. For the first time since this all started, Karen's confidence cracked. But then, she did something that surprised all of us. She laughed. A cold, dismissive laugh. You think this little stunt will stop me? She shook her head. This neighborhood follows my rules, Mr. Reynolds. No one is going to take your side over mine. She turned on her heel and walked back into her house like she hadn't just been caught red-handed. Officer Martinez sighed. Unfortunately, this is still a misdemeanor, unless you want to press charges. Dad shook his head. Not yet. His voice was calm, but there was something dangerous in his tone. He wasn't done yet. Later that day, I was grabbing the mail when a voice cut through the silence. Tell your father we need to talk. I turned. Karen stood near the mailbox, her arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. I felt every muscle in my body tense. I didn't respond. She took a step closer. This doesn't have to get ugly. I stared at her. You literally dug up our garden. She laughed again, like it was funny. Listen, I have a proposition. She leaned in, lowering her voice. If your father helps approve the HOA's loan, I might be willing to reconsider some of your family's violations. I stared at her, stunned. She was bribing us. I took a deep breath. You're insane. Karen's smirk vanished. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't know who you're messing with. And then, just like that, she turned and walked away. I sprinted inside and told Dad everything. His expression didn't change. He simply picked up his phone, dialed a number, and said, I need to report an attempted bribe in connection with a fraudulent HOA loan application. When Tuesday arrived, I'd never seen the community center more packed. Neighbors who had never attended a meeting before were suddenly front-row spectators. Karen sat at the head of the boardroom, her usual arrogance intact, but there was tension in her eyes. She knew she was losing control. The moment the meeting started, Dad stood up. I'd like to discuss the financial discrepancies in the HOA's loan application. Karen visibly stiffened. That information is confidential. Dad remained calm. Actually, since the loan is being secured using our collective HOA dues, members have the legal right to full transparency. Murmurs rippled through the room. Karen clenched her jaw. The loan application is proceeding as expected. Dad smiled. Is that so? Because the bank has requested additional documentation for review. Specifically, an audit of all HOA finances. The room erupted. Karen's face drained of color. And I knew in that moment, this was the beginning of her downfall. The room buzzed with energy as Karen shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She wasn't used to being questioned, let alone challenged in front of the entire neighborhood. An audit? She finally scoffed, trying to regain her composure. That's completely unnecessary. Our finances are in perfect order. Dad didn't even blink. Then you shouldn't have a problem providing the full financial records. Karen smiled, but it was the kind of smile you give when you know you're cornered. Unfortunately, financial details are confidential. Dad pulled a thick folder from his briefcase. Actually, According to HOA bylaws, members have the right to review financial records at any time. He turned to the crowd. And what I found is deeply concerning. The room fell silent. Dad clicked a button, and the projector lit up the screen behind him. A spreadsheet appeared, displaying the HOA's reported revenue for the past 3 years. Then, with a second click, another column appeared, the HOA's actual collected revenue. There was an $80,000 discrepancy. The room erupted in whispers. Karen's fingers curled around the edges of her clipboard. "Where did you get this?" she snapped. Dad didn't miss a beat. From public records, the same ones any homeowner has a right to request. Karen's mask cracked. Her board members, Diane, Bob, and Mark, refused to make eye contact with her. She was losing control, and the worst was yet to come. Dad clicked again. This time, a color-coded chart appeared. Now let's look at how fines are being issued. The chart showed 2 things. The streets where Karen's close friends lived had received almost 0 violations. Our street and several others had received over 60% of all fines. A murmur spread through the crowd. A man near the back of the room, Mr. Patel, a quiet surgeon who rarely spoke at meetings, stood up. That explained a lot. He adjusted his glasses. My mother was fined for leaving a medical supply package on our porch for 2 hours while I was at work. But Diane here, he gestured toward Karen's friend sitting at the board table, has had an RV in her yard for 3 months, and not a single fine. Diane's face went pale. Karen slammed her gavel on the table. "This meeting is getting out of hand." Dad remained calm. "We're just reviewing facts, Karen." She pointed a manicured finger at him. "This is a witch hunt." The tension in the room was thick. And then, from the very back, a slow clap. Everyone turned. It was Mr. Gonzalez, the retired judge. He stood up, looking directly at Karen. "I think we all see what's happening here," he said, "and we're not going to let it continue." Karen's breathing quickened. She looked around as if searching for an exit. "This is nonsense," she snapped. "The fines were issued fairly. The finances are in order. This is just a personal attack." But no one was listening to her anymore. Instead, people started talking amongst themselves. Mrs. Wilson, the elderly woman Karen fined for her bird feeder, turned to the Jacksons. "We need to do something about this." Karen's face twisted. She knew she was losing them. Then she made her biggest mistake. She pulled out a document and waved it in the air. I anticipated this childish reaction, so I brought the official financial statements. She clicked a button, and a new set of numbers appeared on the projector screen. They were completely different from what Dad had just shown. Karen forged financial records. The room went still. Dad turned to the crowd. "Does anyone believe these are the real numbers?" No one spoke. Then, from across the room, a phone vibrated. I glanced down at my own phone. A new email from an unknown sender. I opened it, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a photo of a safe. Subject line: "The real financial records are inside." Sender: Diana Matthews, Karen's daughter. My hands shook as I passed my phone to Dad. His eyes widened. He nodded slightly, then handed the phone to Mr. Jackson, our neighbor, who slipped out quietly. The meeting continued, but Karen was unraveling. She called for a vote to adjourn, but the neighborhood refused to let her end it early. 15 minutes later, the doors to the community center burst open. Mr. Jackson walked in, holding an old green ledger. "Found this in the HOA office safe," he announced. "You wouldn't believe what's in here." Karen's face turned sheet white. Diana stepped into the room behind him. For the first time that night, Karen looked truly afraid. Karen sprang to her feet. "That's private property. You broke into my office." Diana's voice cut through the chaos. I gave them access. The room froze. Karen turned slowly toward her daughter. "Diana, what are you doing?" Diana took a breath. "The right thing, Mom." Mr. Gonzalez took the ledger, flipping through page after page of misappropriated funds. Then he looked up. "Karen Matthews, I moved to hold an immediate vote of no confidence." The room erupted into chaos. Karen turned to the board members. "Back me up." But Diane and the others were silent. Her own allies had abandoned her. The vote was taken. 92% in favor of removing Karen Matthews and her board. Karen's hands shook. She had lost. Completely. Without a word, she stormed out of the room. The HOA board was officially dismantled, and the truth was finally exposed. Karen stormed out of the HOA meeting, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor, her shoulders tense with barely contained rage. The neighborhood was still buzzing, people talking in hushed, excited voices, processing what had just happened. The HOA was officially dismantled. But Dad, he wasn't done yet. As the room emptied, Dad pulled out his phone and made a call. "I need to escalate the fraud investigation," he said. "There's more here than just missing fine money." I watched as he walked outside, pacing under the dim streetlights, his voice low and firm. Something told me Karen's downfall wasn't over. It was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Mom talking on the phone. She was standing by the window, watching the street. "Yes, I think the district attorney's office should be involved," she said. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my phone and checked the neighborhood group chat. The news had spread like wildfire. A post from Mr. Gonzalez. "Police Scarlight, HOA under criminal investigation, Police Scarlight. Neighbors. After last night's meeting, the district attorney's office has opened an inquiry into missing HOA funds. Anyone with documentation or records should report to their office immediately." The comment section was exploding. Finally, that woman has terrorized this place for too long. I want my $600 in fake fines back. Does this mean she's going to jail? I turned to Mom. Did Dad call the DA's office? She nodded. And the bank. Karen's name is tied to multiple HOA accounts across different communities. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about our neighborhood. Karen had done this before. That night, I couldn't sleep. A strange paranoia crept in, a feeling that something was coming. Then, around 3 a.m., a car door slammed outside. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Through my blinds, I saw it. A dark-colored SUV idling outside our house. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, our trash cans tipped over. A shadowy figure ran down the street, disappearing into the dark. The SUV sped off. I bolted out of bed and ran to Dad's office. Someone's messing with our house. Dad was already up, checking our security footage. The camera feed flickered. Then I saw her. Karen, dressed in dark clothes, her face hidden under a hood. She had been standing in our yard, staring at our house for a full minute before tipping over the trash cans. A chill ran down my spine. She was trying to intimidate us. Dad's jaw clenched. This is getting dangerous. He picked up his phone. We're filing a restraining order. The next day, Karen went on the offensive. She filed a harassment claim against our family. The official letter arrived in our mailbox, stamped with legal insignia. My hand shook as I opened it. Claimant, Karen Matthews. Defendant, Thomas Reynolds and family. Allegation, abuse of power, personal vendetta, harassment. I read the words twice, unable to believe what I was seeing. She was trying to flip the script. Dad barely reacted when I handed him the letter. He exhaled slowly and shook his head. She's panicking. I clenched my fists. This is insane. She's the one harassing us. Mom tapped the paper. Look at her main complaint. I read further down. Defendant has used his position as a senior loan officer to conduct a personal vendetta against me, jeopardizing my community project and financial standing. I blinked. Wait, she's trying to get Dad off a loan review? Dad smiled, a slow, knowing smile. That's exactly what she's trying to do, but it won't work. That evening, Dad got a call from his bank's legal team. Karen had personally demanded that the bank assign someone else to the HOA loan case. The bank's response? Request denied. The final blow came 3 days later. A formal statement from First National Bank arrived in the mail. Pinecrest Gardens HOA loan application. Upon thorough review of financial records and discrepancies, we regret to inform you that your loan application has been denied. Due to findings of financial misrepresentation, your HOA account is now flagged for audit. I read the words out loud as Dad leaned back in his chair, satisfied. Karen's entire plan had crumbled. The HOA loan was dead, and without it, Karen had nothing left. The final HOA meeting was held that evening. Karen showed up, but she looked different. Gone was the smug confidence, the polished arrogance. She was a wreck. Her hands trembled as she took the microphone. I just want to say that I never meant for things to get out of hand. The crowd was silent. No one believed her. Karen's voice cracked. This community center was supposed to be my legacy. I worked for years on it. Dad's expression was unreadable. Karen took a shaky breath. I bent a few rules to make it happen, but I never stole from the HOA. Mr. Gonzalez, the retired judge, stood up. Then why did the audit find missing funds, Karen? Karen's face crumbled. She had no answer. Mr. Gonzalez turned to the crowd. I move that we press formal charges. The vote? Unanimous. Karen was done. A month later, everything had changed. A new HOA board was elected. Fair, transparent, and without Karen's corrupt influence. Rules were rewritten. The insane fines? Gone. The unnecessary regulations? Repealed. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like a real community. One night, we held a block party, the first one in Pinecrest Gardens history. Neighbors laughed, kids rode bikes, and cars were parked freely in driveways. No fines, no pink slips, no fear. A few weeks later, Karen sold her house. I saw the moving trucks pull away early one morning. She never said goodbye, but before she left, her daughter, Diana, stopped by our house. She shifted awkwardly on our doorstep. My mom, she's moving to Arizona with my aunt. Dad nodded. I hope she finds some peace there. Diana hesitated. I know she did a lot of awful things, but thank you for stopping her. She needed to face the consequences. She gave me a small smile. Maybe we could be friends now. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't since this all started. Hope. The morning Karen's moving trucks arrived, I stood at my bedroom window, watching. She had once ruled this neighborhood like a tyrant. Now, she looked defeated, her once pristine appearance replaced with a tired expression. She directed the movers without her usual smug authority. Her shoulders slumped, her voice quieter. I spotted Diana standing near the curb, watching her mother, arms crossed. A few neighbors had gathered to watch the show. Some whispered, some openly stared. Karen had spent months terrorizing this community, and now she was nothing but a bad memory. As the last moving truck pulled away, I noticed Dad standing on our front porch, watching just like me. He wasn't smiling. Instead, he looked thoughtful. As much as we despised Karen, we knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. And now, Pinecrest Gardens was free from her grip. The changes started almost immediately. Mr. Jackson, our newly elected HOA president, announced the first official vote under the new HOA board. The first order of business? Undoing every ridiculous rule Karen had implemented. One by one, the unjust fines were reviewed and refunded. The grass height inspections were eliminated. The wind chime and mailbox color regulations? Gone. For the first time, the neighborhood felt like a place where people actually wanted to live. No more fear of pink slips. No more power-hungry rules. Just a community working together. And the best part? The new HOA board made everything transparent. Financial records were open to all homeowners, ensuring that no one could ever exploit the system again. A few weeks later, something incredible happened. The first ever Pinecrest Gardens block party. The entire neighborhood showed up. For years, Karen had made us fear each other, pitting neighbor against neighbor with her absurd rules and penalties. But now, people were laughing, talking, grilling burgers, and playing music. Kids rode their bikes freely through the streets. For the first time, driveways were packed with cars, and no one got fined. I walked through the party, soaking it all in. Dad stood near the grill, talking to Mr. Gonzalez, the retired judge. Mom chatted with Mrs. Wilson, who had finally reinstalled her beloved bird feeder. Even Diana was here, standing off to the side, watching with a small smile. She had stayed behind after her mother left. I walked over to her. "It's weird, huh?" I said. She turned to me, raising an eyebrow. "What is?" I gestured to the street, the people, the laughter, seeing the neighborhood like this. She nodded slowly. "It's nice." She hesitated, then added, "My mom thought she was making the neighborhood better, but she was just controlling it." I shrugged. Maybe she believed that, but power does weird things to people. Diana sighed. "Yeah." Then she looked at me. "But I'm glad it turned out like this." She glanced around. "Maybe we could actually be friends now." I smiled. "I'd like that." And just like that, the last piece of Karen's influence disappeared. Later that night, after the party wound down, I sat on our front porch. The street was quiet, except for the occasional sound of laughter drifting from houses. Dad sat beside me. "Thinking deep thoughts?" he asked with a smirk. I chuckled. "Yeah, it's just weird how this all started." Dad leaned back, staring at the night sky. Over-parking ticket. We both laughed, because it was ridiculous, wasn't it? A single unfair parking fine had led to a battle against corruption, fraud, and abuse of power. And we had won. I turned to Dad. "You think Karen will try something like this again?" "Somewhere else." He exhaled, rubbing his chin. "People like her always do. But this time, she got caught. She won't get away with it again." I nodded, feeling something settle in my chest. We had done something important, not just for our family, for everyone in Pinecrest Gardens. A few days later, I walked outside to see something that made me pause. 3 cars parked in our driveway. A normal thing, a simple thing. But once, it had been a crime in this neighborhood. Now, it was nothing, just another day. I smiled, because that was the way it should be. Home wasn't about rules. It wasn't about regulations or HOA fines. It was about community. It was about people. And now, for the first time in a long time, Pinecrest Gardens felt like home again.